Morning. It's lovely to see you all, even virtually. Thank you very much, Rafika, Daniela, and all the Women for Women team for inviting me to be part of the morning and for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I have some slides, so will I try and share those myself and see if I can do that? Oh, I can, yeah, great. So can everyone see that?
Yes. Can't know or Manaw.
Yeah, so Manaw is the Irish word for women. So like Rafika said, I'm the Women in Local Community and Rural Development Officer, working with the National Women's Council, and I'm delighted to be here this morning. Women for Women are a member group of the National Women's Council, so we're delighted to support their work and their engagement with women at a local level. Now I just need to, just 1 second now. I'm just going to stop sharing just for 1 second, if that's okay, because I just need to bring up, I don't know, maybe Rafika, would you be able to share for me, because I have notes and I don't know if I can, you know, have the notes and the, would you be able to do that for me?
I'll do that for you, yeah. Catherine.
And actually, just while Rafika is doing that, I just was going to ask people to have a think, and maybe they can share it in the chat box just before I get into my presentation and tell you a bit about the National Women's Council and about some of the work and what we've seen in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on women and on women's health and well-being and livelihoods. If we can think about, and I'll just, oh, that's great. If you can move on to the next slide, Rafika. Tell us something good, something that has helped you during COVID-19. Maybe it can be something, you know, someone might have made you a cup of tea this morning. Maybe, you know, you saw something nice out in the garden, or, you know, someone thought to ring you. It can be just something small if you want to share it with us in the chat box. There's a lovely phrase I've heard recently called a day maker. So, you know, someone that's made your day. And certainly we all need those small things now, are even so much more important as we're now back in level 5 and trying to cope with that again, and trying to cope with this on a much more longer term basis. And I see people already starting to share, so that's really, really lovely. Getting out for a walk, so important. So please continue to do that, and I'm going to keep talking and keep just going over some of my notes here. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the National Women's Council, we are the leading women's membership organisation in the country. We're around since 1973, and we've been working to build an equal society for women. We know Ireland still falls short of full equality for women. Older women, women experiencing homelessness, women in direct provision and seeking asylum, women living with addiction issues, migrant women, disabled women, traveller and Roma women, women in prison, all face multiple discrimination and experience considerable challenges playing an equal role in society. If you can move on the slide there, Rafika, that'd be great. So we have a current strategic plan working to 4 main areas from 2016 to 2020. So our 4 priorities for the work of the Women's Council are women realising their right to health and bodily integrity, including reproductive rights, women having economic independence, women's care roles being recognised and valued, and women leading and being represented on and meaningfully participating in all decision-making spaces that affect their lives. And we do this through a number of ways. I'll just get you to move on a little bit, Rafika, there, that's okay, thank you. So there are our main priorities: health, leadership, care, women's economic independence, working with young women. We do our work with our membership, which are vital to our work. That gives us our mandate, and they also inform our priorities and our agenda. We do our work through research, lobbying. We hold events for our members. We have a lot of online campaigns, and we use our social media platforms a lot to try and engage with the media and try and get issues affecting women on the agenda, and making sure that we can influence government policy so that the needs and experiences of women are reflected across all of government decision making and investment, of course, which is vital. So sometimes we're asked, why are we still talking about women's equality? And, have we not reached equality now for women? And women have made such strides, and there's been a lot of progress. So we know that things are very different in Ireland today for women, and things have really changed for the better. But it's also useful, I suppose, to reflect on where we were in the past and how marginalised and excluded women have been. And we take a date in time, for example, 1970. There were 9 things in 1970 that women couldn't do in Ireland. We couldn't buy contraception. We couldn't sit on a jury. We couldn't refuse to have sex with our husband. We couldn't keep our job in the public service or the bank if we got married. We couldn't drink a pint in a pub. We couldn't collect our own children's allowance. We couldn't get a barring order against a violent partner. We couldn't stop our husband from selling our family home, and we couldn't get the same rate of pay for a job as a man. So in 2020, we have the potential to do all of these things, even if some of them, such as making sure women are paid equally for equal work, valuing the care work we do, preventing men's violence against women, still need major efforts to be fully achieved. So while the women's movement has fought and won many battles, from reproductive rights to better family leave, there is still a long way to go. And gatherings like today, even virtually, can help us to organise and feel energised for the challenges ahead. Before we can continue the work to achieve gender equality, we need to have a shared understanding of the discrimination and inequality women currently face. Women are more likely to earn less, be less financially secure, be employed in casual part-time work, undertake the majority of work in the home, experience violence from their partner, be the victims of sexual assault, and experience anxiety and depression. They are also underrepresented in all spaces where decisions are made. Clearly, these are not the features of a gender equal society. I'll just get you to move on there, Rafika. And it was interesting actually to see that UN video obviously highlighting the issues that women are facing globally. And of course, I'm going to talk more about what are the issues facing women in Ireland, but there's certainly, a lot of similarity. Just you can keep moving there. I'm going quicker than, thank you. That's just a slide about why we need equality for women, and around the double discrimination, I suppose, as well, in terms of if you're a woman from a minority group or a disabled woman, a woman living on low income, that you're facing double discrimination. But also to remember, and especially important on a day like today when we're all coming together, trying to reconnect, that women are resilient and we have achieved considerable change in spite of the barriers that we face. Of course, it's really important to remember as well, when we're thinking about the experiences of women generally, but also thinking about different groups of women. And we've begun to engage in terms of women's health and advocating for the HSE to have a particular targeted and focused attention paid to women's health. And they've now begun to work with us to develop a women's health action plan. And within that, we put together a document and looked at, well, what are the particular health inequalities that particular groups of women experience. So if you want to move on to the next slide, Rafika, thank you, that will show up some of the experiences that when we did that research for LGBTQI plus women, migrant women, Roma women, traveller women, women with disabilities, women who are homeless. So it's vital that any responses and actions that the Department of Health or the HSE are going to take on to try and tackle women's health inequalities, that they're thinking about and listening to the experiences of different groups of women. We know that women often put the health needs of their husbands, kids, parents ahead of their own. Mothers have been described as the health CEOs of their families, looking after everyone's health while often ignoring their own. And I suppose this is something that's quite lauded and seen as valuable and in Irish society, a woman putting others before her, caring for others, putting her needs last. And it's something that we celebrate. And I think it's time maybe to try and pull that back and think about that in a different way. And that actually, it is only right that a woman should put her own needs first and think about and consider herself, because only then could, if you do look after yourself in the best way and put yourself first, can you also then be a care for others as well. So it's really important to remember that. And of course, our health does not exist in a vacuum. Inequalities in health arise because of inequalities in society, in the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, age. For example, alcohol and substance misuse often intersects with poverty, inadequate housing, abuse, and other health and social issues. So we must help women to deal with their immediate needs as well as supporting them more broadly around their health. So I'll just ask you to move on to the next slide. Thank you, Rafika. So just bringing us to talk about the pandemic and women and COVID-19. And I suppose people will have heard the analogy or, you know, talking about us all in this great storm. But unfortunately, we are all in the storm together, and we're all in that together, but maybe many of us have different boats, and some of us have a dinghy that's losing air and the water is coming in. Some of us are in a yacht, quite comfortable, you know, so to understand that we are all experiencing it, but not in the same way. And what we've seen, and you'll have no doubt experienced this yourselves, that the pandemic has brought this, you know, existing structural inequalities women experience into focus. And it is our current position in society influences how we're going to experience this pandemic and what happens if we get sick or if someone in our family gets sick. So it's really important to remember that, you know, girls and women, because of the way we live our lives and the types of lives we have, face unique risks of contracting the virus. And we know that the pandemic is going to have long-term implications for the safety, well-being and livelihoods of girls and women. So it's really important that as we seek to live alongside this virus, that our gender lens supports us to recognise girls' and women's needs. And inequalities that have existed before the crisis have deepened as we move between different levels of lockdowns and restrictions to protect public health. So we know back in March, as the country went into a state of emergency, the women's sector, particularly across the country, were mobilised into action. And it was immediately clear that the pandemic would have serious implications for women, and this would require an immediate response. We know women are disproportionately represented as frontline workers in health, retail and domestic roles. School and childcare closures put extra pressure on many women to look after their families and loved ones, especially challenging for lone parents. Many women in precarious jobs before the pandemic were losing their jobs. Women in abusive relationships were under lockdown with their abusers. Many older women living alone were cocooning and isolated, and women living in nursing homes were becoming particularly concerned about their health. So we know women carry a very different kind of burden. Inequities disproportionately affecting their well-being and economic resilience during lockdowns. Households were under strain, childcare, elder care and housework typically falling on women, reducing her ability to earn an income. Concerns over increased domestic violence are growing. The financial, social and health stressors of a pandemic combined with close confinement during lockdowns mean that women and girls are at a higher risk of violence from their partners and family members. Early reports from the Gardaí have indicated an increase in cases, and support services also reporting an increase in women seeking help. So with health services overstretched and charities under-resourced, women's sexual, reproductive and health services, as well as prenatal and postnatal care, have also been disrupted and continue to be disrupted for many women across the country. We know most frontline health workers are women, but they don't always have a voice in the high-level decision-making. Women are still underrepresented at high levels of health authorities, in government, cabinet, internationally and in Ireland. We also know from the latest statistics, and of course these rates might be subject to revision, that women have contracted the virus in about the same level as men. And also the number of deaths are almost equal between women and men, which is internationally there's generally a higher proportion of men are contracting the virus, but I suppose it links back to, again, women predominating in the healthcare and essential work in Ireland, and also the types of roles they're carrying out in unpaid capacity, caring for children, older members of the family, and also going out to do the shopping and things like that. I'll just get you to move on there, Rafika, that's okay. Thank you very much. You can go on to the next one actually, so I've moved on a little bit. So I suppose just as well to look at some of the other challenges that women have experienced during this crisis, and obviously a very strong economic impact being felt by women across the country. We know that COVID-related job losses are more likely to be women and younger workers due to the nature of the jobs that they hold in accommodation, food, wholesale, retail, and other gender-segregated sectors like hairdressing, beauty salons. And women are likely to bear the brunt of this economic contraction and job loss because they make up such a huge amount of that essential economy and because of the types of sectors that women are predominating in. The longer term socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is likely to exacerbate existing gender inequalities and intensify the socioeconomic disparities faced by women in areas such as income and employment, which of course all contribute to our health and well-being. And I've mentioned there in terms of the experience of pregnant women feeling a lot of stress and a lot of worry and concern about the restrictions on when their partner can be with them during labour and visits, and also the other supports that are available to women when they come home with their baby, support groups, and how that can be replicated in an online or virtual space, but also and adhering to public health guidelines, but also ensuring that women have the support they need, which is at a very critical time in their lives. And of course then for particular women who are already living in very unsafe or very overcrowded or poor accommodation, it's extremely challenging and has been extremely challenging for women living in direct provision to self-isolate or to observe social distancing or to be in family bubbles. And I can, there's been a huge amount of mental health and anxiety for those women in those situations, also for traveller women as well, to try and, meet the hygiene guidelines when they don't have running water, hot water, those kind of basic hygiene and sanitation facilities. Women living with addiction, I suppose, and enduring mental health difficulties where supports have been, closed and services are not open, which is very challenging and very difficult. And of course, we have a continuing experience of poverty, that women are more likely to be poor, and more especially women parenting alone. And recent and most latest figures are also saying that the risk of the experience of deprivation continues to be very high among women parenting alone. Disabled women have also expressed concerns, fears that they may have to go into care if they can't have personal assistance or home care that they normally would get into the home, and how that was going to impact them. But they also, I suppose, shared their own experience of, now that we're all experiencing this kind of enforced, restricted movements and being at home more, that often that was their normal situation, because society is not accessible. Maybe they're not in employment, they're not in mainstream education, so they don't have the support and assistance that they need to get out and participate fully in all aspects of society. And of course the digital divide, and I'm sure maybe even today there was women that wouldn't be in a position to take part in the conference today because of that. So that needs particular focus and attention as well. So, and of course, that brings me very, importantly, because we're here today as women, and because of a women's organisation and the really critical and crucial role that women's organisations have played in the past, and have particularly played now in response to this virus, and trying to continue to support women. I'll just get you to move on there, Rafika, if that's okay. So you are a match with you can go on to the next one actually as well.
You have 50 seconds.
Oh, I have 50 seconds. Okay, I'm going to be so quick in 50 seconds. Sorry, I have gone way over. Yeah, so I'll just very quickly mention this survey that we did with women's community organisations. But I suppose just to, and I can share a copy of that with people, but I really just wanted to reinforce, I suppose, the importance of work done with women, by women, community development work, creating spaces for women to talk about their personal experiences, that space to find common ground, how women have led change at local level, and that really needs to be protected and fought for now if we are to experience this economic contraction and maybe cuts in funding. Like, there's so many different ways and roles that women's community organisations and groups play at local level. So just want to really acknowledge that and recognise that contribution that they have played. I just want to briefly mention in the next slide as well that we've also done another survey. This is going to be, the full report's going to be launched next week. And this was again trying to, I suppose, a snapshot in time. It was carried out back in June when really we were in the height of it, and there was very little support, state support for women who were carrying all the burden of care and trying to do everything else as well alongside that. And we're going to be launching a report about women's experience of care and really what needs to happen at state level, at the government level, to address that and really invest in care. So very quickly move along and just try and finish up. So just really, because I've spoken quite a lot about maybe bad things and negative things that women experience, and sometimes we hear a lot about that, and I suppose I don't want everyone to lose sight of the fact that we are powerful and we have different experiences and perspectives, and that's what makes us stronger. We're resilient and we have achieved considerable change, and we can continue to learn and support one another. It's really important that we celebrate all the women in our lives who support and care for us, and think about our own resilience, celebrate our abilities and achievements. So it's really important to foreground women's resilience, power and courage when we speak about women. We don't give ourselves enough credit, that we can find the answers ourselves in conversations with others and through reflection on our own life experiences to bring about change. So we know we play many roles. We're mothers, advocates, daughters, sisters, campaigners, aunts, grandmothers, and every day in our different roles, we care for our families, we seek change, we make serious decisions that will affect our lives and the lives of our loved ones. And in the Women's Council, we've always believed that the only way to create positive change that works for women is to listen to what women say. So I really just want to celebrate all the individual women here today, any community groups, service providers gathered here today. Like, you are unleashing talents, energy, skills and confidence that exists in our community. And by empowering yourselves and other women to reach your full potential within a supportive environment, enhancing the quality of the lives of the women involved in your projects, you're fulfilling a really important role in Irish society as a whole. So we believe change is possible, and it can happen as part of a vibrant and dynamic women's movement. So please get involved with the work of the National Women's Council, and I really look forward to listening to some of the session today. I do have to leave before 11:30, but I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day. So
thank you very
much. I'm
much.
sorry for going over time, which I have a history of doing.
So there's a lot there, and it's fantastic. Yeah, your support for women, and yeah, go women. We have to empower each other. So our next speaker is Anne-Marie Sheridan. She is senior social worker, practitioner for Springboard Family Support Project in Loughlinstown. She worked in child protection and fostering for many years and has extensive experience working with families under stress, in poverty, living with addiction, mental health, and domestic violence. Her work entails supervising and providing a range of family support services to parents and children under stress, addressing conflict and aggression. She trained as a NVR, a nonviolence resistance practitioner, and works with Mithel, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it correct. Mehel, oh, an Irish word,
yeah.
Which is a national practice model in best interest of the child. She reiterates the importance of community supports and services for families, particularly during isolation resulting from COVID-19 restrictions. So welcome, Anne-Marie.
Hello, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me and asking somebody from Springboard to talk. So I'm just going to get stuck in. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. And this worked yesterday. Oh dear. There we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. And I just need to go into slideshow. I'm probably pressing it too hard and kind of from the beginning. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, grand, we're good to go. So that's me, and Rafika has told you all about me, so I don't need to tell you anymore. What I do, I suppose, for me, what today is about is that regardless of what's going on, it's more important now than ever that we stick together. And how can we do that as women? And just a quick look, and I know Rafika talked about this in the introduction, that like within 2 weeks in March, we went from being very busy, people getting children to school, screaming at children to brush their teeth, and 2 weeks later, we were at home in our pajamas. We couldn't see our nearest and dearest, and we were asked to stay at home. And we were at home together with the people we that, you know, not necessarily at all the time at home with family, but in a house with the people we share the house with, which was our home. And that, you know, there were so many positives to that for so many families. We really got to know our children better. We learned how to relax, to slow down. And we discovered the nature around us and really began to appreciate it. But I think most importantly, we had time to reflect on what's important to us as individuals, as families, and as society. And for me, that importance really was the importance of each other, of our friendship, and of community. And there were many challenges, and Catherine just mentioned many of them. There's a huge amount of loneliness and isolation, family conflict, and then leading on to domestic violence, child-to-parent violence, and elder abuse. So family conflict, and I know we always view that as a negative thing, but I think it's quite a positive thing. We need conflict. We can't bring about change unless we have conflict, unless we have disagreement. So it's more how we manage it, and how we come to discuss things rather than getting into the fight or running away, as many of us do, myself included, would rather run from conflict than deal with it. But as parents, how can we manage conflict in the home? And I think the first thing really we can do is listen, and listen to our children, and what are they saying to us when they're behaving. So if your young fellow comes in today and throws his bag on the ground and goes at you, are you going to jump in and shout at him and tell him, please respect your mother and lift your bag up? Or, you know, can you have a bit of, maybe think, what's it like for him being in school all day and then not being able to hang out with his friends? Has he had a really bad day? So listening to behavior rather than just jumping in. You don't need to shout back. You don't need to get into the fight, and we don't need the last word as adults. You know, let it go. You know, so maybe if somebody comes in like that today, you know, I put on the kettle and I make a cup of tea and I'll see you in 10 minutes for a toasted cheeser, rather than giving out and see what happens. Another way of dealing with conflict over, you know, the usual, the iPads, the Xbox, the bedtimes, is to sit down in peacetime, not in wartime, and make agreements, you know, so this is what you want and this is what I want, and where can we come together? And again, that's the positive, you know, we don't, I'm talking about the positivity about conflict, that it's good. We all have different opinions and think different ways, that we don't, you know, we're talking about empowering women today. So it's also empowering our children and not having them just follow, you know, what we say is right, but teaching them to have their own opinion and express their own opinion in a healthy, non-aggressive way. And we can do that. I can't see my little picture because of the way my screen is, but there's a little picture of a lighthouse up there. So that's, you know, when in the work we do in Springboard, we talk a lot about guiding our children, and we've talked about stormy sea, but in this, we're not, as parents, not in the stormy sea with our children, but we are guiding them regardless of what's going on in our life, regardless of the pandemic. We have each other and our partners to talk about that, and we can acknowledge it to our children and tell them it is frightening, it is scary, but I am going to keep you safe. So it's how can we do that? So it's that staying strong and staying grounded, so not getting into the fight, discussing rather than arguing, and apologizing when you do lose it, and we all lose it, and maybe we lose it once a day, twice a day, once a week, but just say you're sorry. And again, just something maybe to reflect on. If somebody comes in today and they shout and scream, and you say, right, that's it, you're losing your Xbox for 2 days, just what benefit is that? Is it going to help? Are they going to not shout at you again? Is peace going to land in the house and everybody be happy clappy, as my husband would say? Or is the conflict just going to continue? So I just, again, rather than that jumping in and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and you can't have that, give it time and let's have a discussion and see what we can do. And show an interest in your children's world. And again, going back to empowering women, empowering your children, taking it, you know, if they have an interest in some game that you think is ridiculous and violent, that's what you think. We don't know. And we're so, and I think maybe as well that we, as we're having children older, many of us, not all, but many of us, the generation gap is bigger and we don't understand our children's world. So we need, as we expect people to understand our world as women, we need to understand our children's world. So sit down and try and play. and fake it till you make it. And maybe you'll never enjoy it, but give it a go and see what happens. So that's, you know, it's not, conflict isn't a bad thing. It's normal and it's natural, and it's how we manage it, and talking about it. But then unfortunately, I suppose there is, you know, we do encounter abuse, and I mentioned, you know, child to parent violence, domestic violence, and elder abuse. So child to parent violence is, it's not conflict. It's when the child is in charge of your house. It's when you're afraid to go into a room because they're going to shout at you. It's like, you can't talk to their friends. If you talk to my friends, I'm going to effing punch you. It's, where's my Chinese takeaway? I'm not eating this shit, and throwing the dinner on the floor. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about conflict. It's like, give me €200 for a pair of runners, or I'll punch the wall, and here's a punch, and the hand goes through the wall. So it's terrifying, and it's frightening. But as has been mentioned by everybody already today, it is through the isolation women are experiencing more abuse, and this is one type of it, and it's going on. And all I can say to you today, because we don't have the time, is if this is happening in your life, talk to a friend. There is support. The most important thing is to break the secrecy. And there is, you know, as mothers, we don't want, you know, that the last thing we want to do is go out and say to somebody, I can't manage my 12-year-old child, my 8-year-old child. They're hitting me, and the judgment, and you mean you can't manage your child? And if that was my child, this is what I will do. And, you know, I told you you spoiled them, and I told you you shouldn't do that. So that is why we don't talk. So I'm asking you, us here as women, that when women come to us, when friends come to us, that we don't judge, hold back, don't judge. People are living in fear, and we need each other. So just to hold back the judgment, and to trust, and do talk. And one person might judge you, and they might tell you that, but, you know, keep trying. You will get somebody who will listen to you. And there is professional support out there. And I think when it comes to that level of violence, we all do need, there is a time in all our lives where we need to seek professional support. And I think that's something to be proud of, not to be ashamed of, to say, okay, I need help to manage this. So to make the phone call, the helpline, parent line, are really good and really experienced in dealing with this. And there are programs to help parents deal with it, because it is becoming, people are talking about it now. So programs have been developed, and Rafika mentioned that in the beginning. So if you want more information, you can contact Springboard. And I know I've given contact details, and they will be shared at some stage. So domestic violence, I don't think I need to explain what domestic violence is, but it's up there on the screen. And just to, you know, to say it's not just about hitting and rape, and which is horrific, but just the emotional abuse that people go through, that you're fat, you're ugly, nobody likes you, I'm the only one who look after you. You know, that's the incessant nature of domestic violence, how it breaks women down and isolates us. And women whose phone call, I worked with a woman where every phone call she made was recorded by her husband. She didn't get to see, if she went to visit her sister, she was phoned every minute until she came home. And it's like, if you do this, I will kill myself. And those threats. So again, it's the importance of taking responsibility of that as a community, and looking out for each other. So that's just, as we said, all the different types of violence included in domestic violence. So the support, how can we support each other? If you're worried about a friend, please say it. Don't beat about the bush. Try and get her on her own somehow. You can, I know we've restrictions, but we can still knock on a door. We have our masks. We can, you know, stand away. We can say, would you come out and think of an excuse? Would you come out and look at my car? Or could you help me? You know, think of some excuse to get somebody out to your car. Just get them out to the bush away from the house, and ask them, do they have the €50 for the taxi if they need it? Is there some symbol you can share? could you get them a phone in Tesco, one of those pay-as-you-go phones, and have your number and their sister's numbers and the number of the Gardaí on it, that they can be hidden, can something be hidden in the lining of their coat? So in you know, in extreme cases of domestic violence, that's the kind of support you can offer. But of course, the most important support we can offer is emotional support, and that's the listening and the time and the understanding, and again, not judging, and not like, I'd leave him if I was you, and what are you doing staying in that relationship? Because it's a really, really hard thing to do, to leave a relationship, and we needed a lot of support to do it, and not just, we need a lot of practical support, and we need money. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, especially at the moment. So listen and support, and make sure, you know, often people are broken down that they think, you know, in child to parent violence and in domestic violence where it's partner to partner, this is my fault, I'm weak, I should be able to cope with my child, I should be able to cope with my husband, this is all my fault. This is not anybody, this is not our fault. This is a pattern of behavior that has developed. There is no excuse for it. Your partner losing his job, your partner having problems with drink, having, you know, having family problems. There is no excuse for children or for adults to hurt each other. So there is no excuse for, there is no way of excusing anybody for being abusive. So just making sure you get that message to your friend. And if you are sitting here and you're experiencing this, I'm really sorry, but just to get that message to you too. And elder abuse, again, there's like, that's gone up by 12%. And just to say, domestic violence has gone up by 18% in that period of the first lockdown, and elder abuse has gone up by 12%. And I was speaking to a colleague who works in this area, and the example she gave was of, say, one child going into the house and monitoring phone calls, and not letting the dad get phone calls from other children and saying, right, I'm the only one who's contacting you, they're not phoning you. And then to the other children saying, oh, dad's too tired, he's in bed all day, he can't talk. So they're taking over control. And then it's the same, I'm the only one who looks after you, and you know, so you need to give me €400, or, you know, or else you're going to starve. And it is that severe, and people are going, there is a lot of cases going into court at the moment to get barring orders from adult children. So again, just to, I know I'm kind of trying to rush because I don't want to go over the time, and I have to say this is really strange talking to a blank screen. So I hope it's okay out there. So we need to. Okay, so just to support, yeah, again, support the vulnerable people in your community. Again, put on your mask. There is no excuse for not connecting. We really need, and I think if just to come today, if we can just think of ways of connecting with each other. If somebody isn't on a WhatsApp conversation today, I don't hear from them, pick up the phone and phone them and ask them, are they okay? Or just say, I haven't heard from you. And as I think we know, when women support each other, incredible things happen. And now I came across this poem yesterday. It's written by a friend's sister. And since I've just rushed and we're all rushing, I think maybe if we just take my last minute just to slow down and just to think of that power we can get from each other when we do feel powerless. So when you feel powerless, imagine the power in your light. Imagine the best version of yourself. Imagine all you can do. Look out, find the light in others, follow it, absorb it, radiate it out into the world, and let it roar from the depths of you. It's all you have. You have the power, imagine. So thank you.
Wow, that is an amazing poem. And yeah, thank you very much for yeah, showing. I mean, we are probably aware of all these issues, but it's important to voice them, because yeah, some things we're not really aware of, but when you speak about them, then it makes it that it is real, you know. So yeah, support is very important, and gentle support, as you were saying, and listening, and yeah, very good. So is anybody want to ask a question? Our next speaker is Clodagh Erasmus, the Health and Wellbeing Coordinator at Grow Mental Health. She runs a diverse range of programs such as mental health education program, both within the community and workplace. She has facilitated a weekly structured program for peer support groups online. Clodagh is a life and executive coach and enjoys helping people overcome obstacles and plan for their future. Recently, Clodagh facilitated a workshop, Understanding and Minding Your Mental Health, in September. So welcome, Clodagh. I'm glad.
Thanks very much, Rafika, and good morning, or I think it's probably good afternoon to everybody now as well.
Really,
Thanks very much for having me here today. It's lovely to be able to connect with you all. I better share my presentation. Actually, I'm going to start talking and I have nothing to show you. So if you just bear with me a second. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah. No. Perfect. That's lovely. Thanks very much. So again, thanks very much, Rafika, for inviting me to talk to you all today about your health and well-being. So as mentioned, I am the health and well-being coordinator with GROW. And just to give you a quick little background on it, GROW, we are a mental health charity and we provide free, friendly, community-based peer support groups for anybody in the community that is feeling maybe a bit isolated, they may be feeling lonely, or they might be suffering from some form of mental health issue. So everybody's welcome. You don't need to be referred, and it's a free place where it's safe for you to talk and tell your story in a confidential setting. And we follow a 12-step program based on a recovery model, and our members meet weekly. They used to be in the community. We used to have 130 groups around the community in face-to-face settings, and now they're all online. And we probably don't have 130 groups online at the moment, but we've amalgamated some to be able to provide the service to everybody during the pandemic. And then in addition to the support groups that we run, my role is to run mental health education programs in both the community and in the workplace. And I suppose the reason why we do that is to open up the topic around mental health and to highlight the importance of it in everybody's lives. And if the one thing that you could take away from today is that you realise that your mental health is as important as your physical health. And that's really, really important. And really they work in connection with each other. So if you feel that you may be suffering from a mental health issue, maybe you should go and talk to your doctor and get advice, and that you treat it the very same way you would a physical illness. Like if you had diabetes, you would go to the doctor, you'd probably get advice, you might be put on medication, you might have to make changes to your lifestyle. And we encourage people to do the same with their mental health and to not think that there should be a stigma or anything attached to it. So just to bear that in mind. And a lot of people go through mental health issues at various points in their life, and there's absolutely no shame in it. And it's the same as any other form of an illness. But today I'm here to talk to you about your wellness, and listening to the feedback that I just joined in on there, I feel like I might be preaching to the converted today, because you all seem to be very clued in on the things that you should be doing to look after yourselves. But hopefully I'll be able to reinforce what you've been talking about. So this here is called the Wellness Wheel, and this is a very useful tool in evaluating your own wellness in life. And if you can see in the center of the circle, it talks about your individual wellness. So all of there's 7 pieces to this circular pie, or whatever you'd like to call it. And all of these things make up your own wellness. And I suppose if one little part of it is out of sync, it can affect how you function and how your own wellness is. I'll touch on each point very quickly because I know we're tight on time. But if I start briefly talking about the emotional side of things, that is about developing a positive sense of self for yourself, and about being open to experiencing a healthy range of emotions. We all feel different emotions from time to time, and it's important to acknowledge them and accept them. It's about kind of, I suppose, being more aware of coping strategies to manage your stress. So stress causes us can cause us to become ill. So it's very important that whatever stresses are happening in your life, that you can develop coping strategies to manage them. It's about being sensitive to your own feelings and feelings of others. It's about having realistic expectations, and I suppose realizing that challenges and setbacks are part of life, and figuring out ways of overcoming them. And when we talk about the intellectual part of the wheel, It's about exploring and developing your own intellect. And we all have very different learning styles, and it's to be more aware of what they are and figuring out things that interest you. And I know, listening to the conversation that I just joined in on, a lot of you have done that over the lockdown period. You've found new hobbies and things that interest you, and online courses, which is brilliant. And it's about developing new skills. So I think you're all well on the way of looking after your intellect. And then in the terms of the physical part of the wellness wheel, that encompasses quite a lot. So it's things like taking care of your physical health, such as exercise, sleep and nutrition. And I'll talk about them briefly before we finish up. And about the awareness of the impact that maybe alcohol and substance abuse can have on your body. And then one of the most important things that I think is really important for women in particular, because we don't give time to ourselves as much as men do, is understanding the importance of self-care. And I think a lot of people associate self-care with, being a little bit selfish. You're doing something good for yourself, so maybe you shouldn't slot it into your day. Yes, you should. You need to look after yourself, and you need to make time for yourself. It could be just having a bath every night, if that's something that relaxes you. Just figure out one little thing that you could put into your day that would be self-care just for you. And that's really, really important, particularly in the times that we're finding ourselves in at the moment. If I move on to the social aspect of the wheel, it's about being connected with people. Again, that's really, really important right now. We are tribal people. We like to be connected with each other. So if you look at your social relationships, it's about practicing positive relationships in your life. So it could be with your family, with your friends, if you're in a bubble. It's about not isolating yourself from your community and the people around you. And again, it's about being involved in community groups, and it's about coming on calls like you're on today and getting involved in the community. If you look at your environmental aspect, it's about developing awareness of your environment and enhancing your relationship with it. And it's about honouring your individual living preferences while respecting the preferences of other people. So if you look at the environment that you're in at the moment, we're at home more often than we would have been otherwise. But it's about making sure that you're comfortable in it and making it as pleasant as possible, so that you can be as productive as possible and feel as comfortable as possible in it. Another area that people don't like to talk about, which does encompass our well-being, is our financial situation. So a colleague of mine refers to this as just living within your means. And it's about, I suppose, being able to access the resources and skills that allow you to accomplish your goals and to plan for your future. And just being a bit more practical about that if you can be. And then the last part of this pie is spirituality. And a lot of people think spirituality is about religion. It's not necessarily. It's about exploring a meaning and purpose in your life. It's what drives you and what keeps you motivated and what you can commit to life. And I suppose it's about engaging and giving back to your community and understanding your values and making decisions that complement them, which in turn will allow yourself to grow as a person. So that's quite important. And I know people have various different ways of expressing their own spirituality. Some people do it through meditation, some people do it through religion, some people do it through various forms. But it is important that you acknowledge that, and it's something that works for you and is in line with your values in life. We all have learned a lot of resilience skills in the past few months. We've had to develop them, and we will need them more in the coming year as well, I think. But the good news is resilience is something that we can work on, and it is something that we can practice. So resilience is described as a pattern of personality characteristics that distinguish those who remained healthy under life stress as compared to those who developed health problems. So a lot of people think resilience is about being able to bounce back after a setback. And yes, it is, but it's also about being able to cope with the little life stress, the stresses that life throws at you on a daily basis. Like, for example, I heard someone mention the stress of schooling children from home during the pandemic. That was very, very hard on parents. And, you know, it's about being able to develop little coping strategies that will help us get through our day without upsetting us too much. And the good thing is there's 5 things that you can work on when it comes to resilience. And that is social support, coping mechanisms, eat, sleep and exercise. And I'll just focus on the first 2 for the moment. Social supports are extremely important. So it's about recognizing who are the people in your life that can support you, who can you turn to if you need additional help, what resources are out there outside of your family to support you as well. Or if you're beginning to feel overwhelmed and very, very stressed, who can you contact? What supports are in place for you? So it might be as simple as picking up the phone to your GP and saying, I'm completely overwhelmed and I'm feeling very, very stressed and I don't know how to cope. And then putting you into a system that will get you the help that you need. Or it could be just talking to a friend. It could be picking up the phone to someone you haven't spoken to in quite a while. But your social support is more and more important, particularly as people are becoming more isolated with the COVID crisis. When I talk about coping mechanisms, it's really important that we figure out ways that we can cope with the stresses that life is throwing at us. So there are emotional coping mechanisms, such as maybe meeting a friend and going for a socially distanced walk if you can. It could be picking up the phone and chatting to someone and getting your problem off your chest. It could be meditation, it could be exercise, it could be having a relaxing bath. And then there's problem-solving coping mechanisms as well. And that is also like asking for support if you feel that you need it and finding the right resources that are there to help you. It could be establishing healthy boundaries. It could be making a to-do list if you're just feeling completely overwhelmed with what's going on and kind of prioritizing things, or maybe managing your time a little bit better. When it comes to nutrition, I'll focus on that in another slide, but it's about eating healthily and just to remember that you need to nourish your body to be able to stay strong, to cope with stress. And with sleep, getting adequate sleep at night is one of the key things that I'd like you to take away today. Getting 8 hours sleep at night is really, really important, or 6 to 8 hours sleep at night if you can't get 8 hours. But your body can't function if it hasn't had time to rest and recharge for the following day. So that's extremely important. And exercise, I've heard you talk about that as well. If you can't make time to maybe get a workout in, or do a full regime of exercises every day, even if you could just schedule a 15-minute walk for yourself to get out in the fresh air and connect with nature, that has really positive impact on your mental health and well-being. And then I'm just going to give you a few tips that you can hopefully walk away with today to think about, that you could focus on for this lockdown maybe. And as I mentioned already, sleep is so important. To try get 6 to 8 hours sleep at night so that your body is rested and it's refueled and recharged for the following day. And you might, I suppose, realize that if you are overtired, everything seems so much worse than if you're well rested. And it's important that you put a good sleep routine in place. So maybe start finding out a way of relaxing in the evening time so that your body knows it's time to start unwinding. Stay away from blue screens, have a nice clear bedroom where it's neat and tidy so it doesn't feel like it's cluttered. So your bedroom should be for sleep and getting a good night's sleep, and try get into a habit of going to bed at the same time every night and waking up the same time every morning. No lie-ins at weekends, because that's a good way for your body to actually get into a habit of good sleep practice. And then I mentioned exercise is really, really good and positive for your mental health. So to try schedule even a minimum of a 15-minute walk every day, or if you can't get out and you're stuck at home with kids, maybe just find something online that you could follow. And like, I know you can do lots of yoga. This YouTube, you could follow that, or an exercise program. And your nutrition is also really important, because your body needs to be fueled to be able to stay healthy and cope with challenges as well. So when we talk about nutrition, it's about just being more aware, not telling you how to eat or what to eat, but just being more aware of what you're putting in your body, that it's nourishing and it's fueling you. And to think of the Mediterranean diet, have nice healthy colours on your plate, and to focus on healthy fats and oily fishes. They're very good for your brain and for your mood as well. And connection with others is really important. So to think about, I know some of you, I heard there, that have family abroad. So how can you stay connected with them and ease your own worries about them? So do you have Skype? Do you WhatsApp? Do you FaceTime? Can you schedule that into your weekly routine to help ease your worries about people that are far away? By staying connected with the people that are closer to you as well, like picking up the phone to a friend that you might not have spoken to in a while. By checking in on your neighbours as well. So people that might be isolated. And that'll also help you feel better, because you're giving back to somebody that might need it. And figuring out ways that will help you relax. So in a way, that's kind of like self-care. So take time out for yourself, do something that relaxes you every day. Talking about things is really important. So if you have a worry or if you're feeling isolated, pick up the phone to somebody or text them or WhatsApp them, whatever it is, and tell them about how you're feeling, because quite often once you get something off your chest, it'll take the bad feeling out of it. And never ever be afraid to ask for help. So if you are suffering from maybe a mental health issue, or maybe you're worried about something, and it's really, really concerning you, please talk to somebody. There will always be somebody there that will want to help you. So there might be a support organisation out there that could help you grow. We're a very friendly community and we welcome everybody and anybody through our doors. It could be your GP, it could be through the Southside Partnership, their social prescribing programme, something like that. But don't feel ever like you're on your own, because there are a lot of places and supports and organisations out there that are there to support and help you. I think it's really important, and you've spoken about this already, do something you enjoy. So if I heard some of you are baking banana breads, someone's knitting, you're doing lots of different things. One thing that I find therapeutic that I enjoy doing is ceramics. So if you can find something that gives you space to think for yourself and just have a little bit of time out from the stresses of life, do it and enjoy it and don't feel guilty about it. Getting involved in your community is really important as well. And I know times are different at the moment and we can't get out and we're not able to interact with people like we otherwise would have, but figure out ways of how you can get involved in your community after this, because I think the one thing that has got a lot of people through this crisis is the sense of community out there and people helping and supporting each other through it. So that might be something to think about for when all of this is over. And then the last thing that I think you really should focus on for yourselves is accepting yourself. And when I say accepting yourself, I'm talking about being proud of who you are, acknowledging your achievements. It's something that we as women particularly don't do very often. We don't stop and take stock of all of the things that we do, of our successes, and be proud of who you are and what you do and what you give to yourself and to your family and your community. That's something that we don't do often enough. And then the last thing that I mentioned that we should be doing during this crisis is focusing on the things that we can control, not on the things that we can't control, because that's just wasting our time and our energy. So what we can do is we can focus and control our thoughts. So while they may not always be positive, we can practice on making them more positive. We can work on that and we can train our brain. So you could start every time you start thinking something negative, replace it with some positive affirmation. You could start your day maybe practicing a bit of gratitude. Think of 3 things that you could do that you're grateful for every morning, and that'll help you with that. Our emotions, we touched on them already. So we don't always have positive emotions. Sometimes you might feel angry, sometimes you might feel frustrated. It's important to acknowledge them and accept them, and then you can move on from them. We can control our schedule to a certain extent, so it's difficult with children at home. I understand that when you're working from home, but try create a schedule for yourself for the week or for the day, whichever is easier for you to manage, and try and stick to that so that you have a routine and you have a schedule that works for you and for your family. Our environment, we are all stuck at home a little bit more than we might want to be at the moment, but to try and make it as pleasant and comfortable as possible for the times that we find ourselves in. And while we can't control the problems that are facing us all the time, we can focus on how we can react to them. And maybe what we can focus on is how we learn from things that are happening in our lives, and that how we handle and how we cope with them. So this is a very quick presentation, and I hope that I've covered enough to give you a snapshot of the important things that will help you with your mental health, particularly in the times that we find ourselves in. I've just put up our own website there, which is grow.ie, because you'll find some resources there. We have some podcasts on coping in the times that we're finding ourselves in, specifically during COVID. To know that the Samaritans is a very good helpline that's there 24/7 for people. There's free online counselling services and HSE services. And then I didn't mention mindfulness and meditation, but if there are people into that, the Sanctuary is a very good website on getting information and free online webinars with them as well. And I will be running more courses later in the autumn, and we haven't finalised them yet, but I will share them with Rafika, who can share them on with you guys. once that's shared. Is that okay? And if you've got any questions,
brilliant.
you can let me know.
Okay, thank you very much, Clodagh. Nice to meet you. And I certainly will try and get my sleeping pattern in order.
It's
tend
not
to
always
sleep
easy,
late and wake up early, and I'm tired on the weekends, you know. So yeah, that's definitely one to watch. Okay, so anybody have any questions to ask Clodagh before we go on to Fardus? If anybody has questions, you can put your hand up. Anyone is going to wrap up. Fardus is a member of Women4women Network since 2012, and she's on the board of directors for Southside Partnership. She's a PhD researcher and lecturer in marketing and cyber psychology. Her focus is on children and ethnic minority women. She's a co-founder of an IT consultancy graphic design company, FarendNet, and a founder member of Sisters of Faith for Peace, a nonprofit working jointly with all religions on peace, offering workshops and awareness raising events. Recently, she was on the panel of the Una Higgins O'Malley webinar, which was the possibility of reconciliation, people and politics, among other distinguished panelists, including peace and reconciliation activist Joe Berry. So welcome, Fardus, to give us your wrap up.
Thank you all. I mean, what a pleasure and what a treat it has been really to see so many different faces and to be part of this very diverse but very intimate, I think, gathering this morning. So thank you all, and thank you for this opportunity. I mean, what we've seen this morning really is that from all our speakers, that there is some common theme that women, particularly women, face as a result of the current crisis and the lockdown, in terms of the physical and mental health, economic issues, but also social in their social lives, and how women, us as women, face these issues differently than men. And you know, so from Catherine, for instance, we've seen the amount of changes that have taken in our society in the last 30 to 40 years. But she's also emphasized on the difference and the importance of our different perspectives that can bring to this dialogue, and how we as women can, by reflecting on our contribution and our differences, can come up with solutions that really benefit us all in the society. So her kind of parting remark was, let's get involved and be active as much as you can. From Anne-Marie Sheridan, we've seen, you know, she talked about the conflict, and oftentimes when we talk about the conflict, there is kind of this negative connotation that it should be avoided. But what was really interesting for me, it was that she said that we should use that as a point of communication, and how it can be used in a positive way, so that we can manage the conflict better. So I thought that was a great perspective and approach. From Clodagh, we've seen the importance, obviously, of looking after both mental and physical health. I know I struggle with sleep patterns, and no matter of creams and makeup can sometimes cover that, but certainly I can identify with that. So thank you for those tips as well. But it's also on the importance of valuing our existing connections and really accepting us for ourselves. So, and obviously there was so much more. So I would hope, I've sent a message there, so I would hope that perhaps our speakers would be able to send us the copies of their presentations, so that all our participants and all of us can benefit and refer back to your presentation as a resource, because they were fantastic. But in addition to that, I would like to remind everyone that Women4women has a great website, it's a numeral 4, so women4women.ie. There is directory of services that offer support for women in all walks of from all walks of lives, and deals with issues such as childcare, such as training and education, support in the community, support in issues in the family, and additional resources are being prepared by by Marilyn, Rafika, Leanne, and many others in our group here of women. So I would suggest for all of you to remember that if you need additional information and resources, to go to definitely access that website, because it's fantastic. I will close up really with this fantastic conference with the words that was the Karen Grahn she's the global director of the World Back Group, and I really loved her video where she said, let's use COVID to build back better society. And I think, she said, let's not waste this crisis. And I think, she's so right. Let's use this crisis. Let's just use this as the opportunity to build back, to build the society which is not only more equal but equitable for all of us. And as women, we need to work collaboratively to strengthen the existing social system, the existing supports, but also we need to be represented be aware of our capacity to contribute, but also to be represented in all spheres of life in terms of the leadership, not only when we talk about leadership, not only at the international level, but really at the local levels as well, in a community and national level, and to be part of the solution. Let's to us to be part of the solution, part of the decision-making process, but also part of the delivery and all of the strategies that impact our life, really. So at the end, really, change is possible. Let's look at, how much society has changed in the last 30, 40 years. I know sometimes it's not always positive, but let's focus on positive, I think. And let's get involved in as much as we are all comfortable with our own spheres of life. Before finishing, I would really love to thank all our speakers, Catherine Lane, Anne-Marie, Sheridan, and Clodagh, Erasmus. Thank you. Fantastic presentations. I would like to thank our moderator and one of our key organizers, Rafika, Kelly, and ZJ, Marilyn, Nyquist, Daniela Nab, who is the project coordinator, who's doing so much behind the scene, as well as Maurice Haggerty, Leanne Lang, Marie Kavanagh, Louise Keenleen, and all our group facilitators, and especially to all of you who have participated really in today's conference, in the breakout groups, in making the conference possible and so much more enjoyable and personal. So I hope we'll get to see you on our other programs, on our breakfast, on our training, on different training courses, and next year in another conference. But please God, it'll be face to face as well as online. So thank you all, and let's get involved, and let's build better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bring back better. Yeah, that's a great motto. Yeah, and a great video. Maybe Marilyn, if you can share it on the chat. It's very inspiring, and yeah, so we can all chat among ourselves here. Thank you. Anyway, as Fardus said to all the speakers, it was a packed morning, but very, very useful for all of us. If you want me to share the presentations, if it's okay with the speakers, yeah. So if you want, or I can just share it anyway to all the attendees. And yeah, so
it might be the best way to have it literally there, to share the presentations on the website. Also, we've compiled a list of all the services that have been mentioned today or have been put up on the screen. We have a list available, and it will be available on the women4women's website. So if you are affected by any issues, and you need contact details, just go onto the website or contact us, and our contact details are also on the website. Thank you for
yes. Yeah.
event. Yeah.
Yeah. So did anybody else want to have give a question to